I was going to say we're going to get started once I hear the recording in progress button, and it just went. So I'd like to welcome all of y'all to this webinar series. It's the uh, we're going to be talking today specifically about the City of Rockwall and their restaurant dashboard and how cool that was and how award-winning it is. It was a recipient of one of our ESIG awards. But I want to kind of do a little bit of housekeeping here. If you're comfortable with Zoom, down at the bottom. You'll see like participants chat reaction. Focus on the reaction. And if you hear something that you love or you think something's funny, just go ahead and give us a reaction. If you love it. So everybody just kind of test out the reactions and see how that works for you. If you have a question or if a question comes up during the presentation, um, try to do it in Q&A. That's a little cleaner for us to answer and monitor. You can ask questions in chat, but we prefer to be in that Q&A, which is next to share. And if you have any other thing that you wanted to mention, you can put it in chat right away. So in fact, in order for us to get started, I think it would be nice that if everybody can just tell us, like, throw your name and where you're from, where you're coming in from, just so we can see who we are, where we're coming in from. Okay, Washington, fantastic. Hey, Jess. I was in Virginia last summer, in Richmond, LA, Huntsville. We were all over the place. This is fantastic. New Mexico, Chad and Decatur. It's right down the road. So I am delighted to introduce Ollie Powers. We've known each other for around 10 years. And I remember probably the first time we truly got to visit with one another was Ollie was giving a presentation when she worked for the city of Mesquite about a tornado that recently went through, which happens in Texas from time to time. It also turns out I'm from Texas too, and Ollie and I are about, I don't know, 5 minutes from each other. So so you're going to get a Texas-centric presentation here today, even though we'll find a little bit more about our presenter here in a second. She currently works for the City of Rockwall. She's been there for about 4.5 years. Prior to that, she was in consulting for a company called New Edge, which is local here in the Dallas area, but I believe they're worldwide. You can find them anywhere. And then when I met her was in Mesquite, and she worked there for about 3 years. So she worked for New Edge for 2, Mesquite for about 3. And if you go to her LinkedIn page, and maybe I'll post it out there for y'all to connect at some point, she has 19 entries for, I think Ollie, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you have every job you've ever worked from the age of 14.
Yeah, because I'm that person.
Yeah. So she's very thorough. And so if you go down to like the fourth one in, she was a cartographer at the Canadian Cartographic Corporation. So how did you get from Canada to the US, specifically Texas? Why don't you tell us how you got here?
That would be the amazing world of Warcraft, Tim.
Ah,
I met my husband on a video game.
love
Uh,
it.
so yeah, so we dated for a few years, and then we got to the point where this long distance kind of sucks, not gonna lie.
Ah,
So we got to the point where we're like, hey, we either have to break up or get married, and we didn't want to break up. So here we
nice.
are in Texas.
Love it. Now, what made you choose Texas? Or you're originally from the Toronto area, right? Ontario?
Correct, yes. Honestly, it was just at the time when we were going through this, Canada had just finished redoing their immigration system and they had a huge backlog. So it was one of the few times in history it was actually easier to get into the US than it was into Canada. So I came to the US.
So wasn't Texas just like, I've always heard about Texas, I must live there? Wasn't anything like that?
No, no.
Oh, right.
The first time I came to Texas, you could see grass growing in the lake beds.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah. It gets dry around here sometimes.
yeah.
Okay. So I asked Ollie to share with us something that you do not know about her. Maybe I don't know. We'll see if anyone knows, but maybe we'll see it from the reaction. So Ollie, share with us the one thing that you know we don't know about you.
I'm sharing it. I have sung the national anthem at a Major League Baseball game.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, So another thing about this when I asked her about it was it was a Toronto Blue Jays game, and they were playing. Well, I think the Blue Jays are the only Canadian team. So so they're playing obviously a team from the U.S. So not only did you have to sing the Canadian national anthem, but you also had to sing the U.S. national anthem too, right?
Yep.
Did you have to learn it? I mean, I'm sure you did.
Yeah, we did.
So that's fantastic. All right.
Yeah, I should also
So
mention I was 13 at the time, so
I was scouring the internet looking for this video and I could not find anything. So maybe I'll keep looking and we'll post.
I called the school and I asked them if they had the record, and they're like, "Nah, that'd be in storage. We don't have that anymore."
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right. I just figure YouTube or the internet provides, right? So,
yeah.
but let's so now we know Ollie, right? We know a little bit about Ollie. We know some stuff we didn't know about Ollie, and now we want to know about what Ollie's doing. Like, what kind of work have you been doing the last couple of years? And let's talk about this award-winning application that you've written for your city, the City of Rockwall Restaurant Scores and Dashboard. So, Ollie, I'm going to just turn it over to you, and off you go.
All right, cool. Thank you, Tim. And thank you for that amazing introduction.
And
So
now we're out of time. Thank you, everybody, for showing
yeah,
up. No,
done my job for me. Okay,
yeah.
so let's talk about the dashboard. So Tim has told you all about me. Let me tell you a little bit about the City of Rockwall. So we are in North Texas. We're just east of Dallas on the shores of Lake Ray Hubbard. I know some of you might be wondering, hey, there's lakes in Texas. There are, in fact, lakes in Texas, and some of them are rather gorgeous. So like most cities in North Texas, Rockwall has had tremendous growth in the last several years. Unfortunately, our budgets have not grown as fast as our population has, so we are constantly being asked to do more with less. And as many of you know, this is usually easier said than done. However, luckily, our city decided to invest in a really good asset management software. They purchased CityWorks, and we use two CityWorks modules. So in 2018, the city went live with the AMS portion of CityWorks, so their asset management system. And then in 2020, smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, we went live with the PLL module, and that's their permitting and licensing side. So CityWorks. So around sometime in 2023, I've been with the city, and we've been using this for several years at this point. And my health coordinator called, and she's like, "Hey, I got a problem with something. Can you come up to my desk and help me?" And I was like, "Sure, no problem, Vicky." So I went to go, and she was trying to finish something up. So, and as you do, you kind of just like let somebody finish what they're working on. And I noticed, oh, you've got a printout of an email. Oh, you are manually entering records into something. And in my head, I'm thinking, please don't let this be what I think it is. And I ask her, what are you doing? And it was exactly what I thought.
You should have said, just walk away. Just walk away.
Yeah.
Don't ask.
Yeah. So so she was taking so before CityWorks, the health inspector would do their inspections at the restaurants. They would do everything on the state mandated inspection form. They would do whatever they had to do on their side for the state, and then they would email all these records, the scores and the reports themselves, and email them to the health inspector, who would then have to manually input these the dates and the scores and everything into another software, which would then be uploaded onto the city's website. So that's what she was doing. And this is what the city's website looked like at the time. So it was just a list of restaurants. They had a category in them. If you clicked on the restaurant, it would open up a little bit further and it give you the date of the inspections and what their score was. And so here's 3 years later, after we've implemented this permitting system, she's still doing the same thing. And I'm sure you can just imagine the horror on my face as I'm realizing what's happening here. And my immediate thoughts of, we have the tools and technology that this should not be a thing anymore. We are fixing this. So immediately I started working on, okay, we need to resolve this. There's no reason for this to be happening anymore. She does not need to be doing this. Our health coordinator also doubles as our code coordinator. And as the city is growing, you can imagine she is a very busy lady. She does not have the time to be manually inputting things. So on top of that, it wasn't a really steady process. So sometimes the health inspector would email them like every day. Sometimes they would wait like a week or two and then just send everything at once. On the flip side, our coordinator would get really busy. It was pretty common for her to spend like weeks and sometimes even months between updating these scores online, and people would be calling for them. So there was definitely a better solution. And here's screenshot of an old software. Our IT department actually made it for them so that she could enter the scores into this other database that was going to be updating this website here. So that's what we used to have, and here's what we have now. So so this is our new dashboard. So as you can see, it's a pretty simple dashboard. We've got the map portion and we've got a list kind of similar to what we had before. You can either zoom in and you can just pick something from the map there. And you can get the scores from there, or you can also pick something from the drop-down list and this list here, and it'll bring things up. Now, one of the things to notice, the first restaurant I clicked on only had 2 entries. This one's got more. So we've made this list dynamic, so it's only showing the scores that are actually there. You're not having like a bunch of blank lines for inspections that don't exist. And then just a little bit more detail here. We've got at the top of this here, we've got the name of the restaurant, the most recent score and date. And then we've got a little bit more information on the restaurant there. And then we have the entire list of available scores for that. Not only this, you can actually go and take a look at the report itself for each of those inspections. So if you want a little bit more detail, you can go in and get all of that. And this is publicly available. Anybody of you right now can just go type into Google Rockwall restaurant inspection scores. This app will come up and you have full access to this. So this is the new one. The best part of this is it's fully automated. So once the actual permit is applied for, but from the public side, there's very little that my health coordinator has to do anymore. She doesn't have to sit there, collect these scores from the health inspector, and type them anymore. Her job has been freed up. So how did we get to there? Well, the first thing I had to do was from CityWorks figure, okay, what am I actually taking from CityWorks to make this app work? So one of the things I do want to mention is the development of this app was not linear in any way or fashion. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of trial and error going on here until we got to the final product there. So what I'm kind of showing you is what is going on now, not how I actually developed it from start to finish. So and another thing to note is all the data that you're seeing here, all of this is from CityWorks. None of this is being edited from the GIS at all. This is 100% pulled from CityWorks. So it's nothing that anybody has had to manually input except for what was already put in by the health inspector. So this is what CityWorks looks like, where we use Office. So the first step in this process would be someone would come in and apply for a restaurant permit or a food license. Once that process is underway, I have opened an inspection case here. So this is automatically generated by the system. And you can see down here in this workflow, we have these routine food inspections. So our restaurants get inspected twice a year. So the health inspector will go in, do her inspection. She'll put in the result of what that inspection is. You'll notice here we've got this little paper clip here. That's an attachment. So that's the actual health inspection form or report that is being attached to that. And she does that here. And once that's done, the system is going to take over. The only thing my health coordinator has to do is we had to find a way to filter what was being shown onto the dashboard. So this is the restaurant inspections dashboard. There are a lot of other things that require a food permit, like the hospitals, school cafeterias, the county jail. We're not going to show these things on the dashboard. So we just made this little custom field down here, establishment type. It shows those same categories that we had in the original food web page. So we just use those same categories. So this actually just lets us filter out what is not going to be what is going to be shown and not be shown on this dashboard. The other thing we wanted to make sure of is we're only going to show active status inspections. Once we find out a restaurant has closed, we actually go in and we close the case. We close the permit and we close the food inspection permit. And when a case has been closed, the status reads closed, then that gets automatically taken off the dashboard. We don't have to do that. The system does it for us. So we're not showing old, outdated information. So now that I figured out what I'm pulling from CityWorks, how do I get the data from CityWorks into my GIS? So something I've used in other applications that I've built using CityWorks is a CityWorks eURL. And this is a really great handy tool that CityWorks provides for their clients. It essentially takes a query that you've done in the software and it makes it spatially available. So once I've created that eURL, I can download that query as a shapefile. I can download it as a geodatabase, or I can even consume it as a live feature service, which is I have done in other applications. Unfortunately, for this one, it wasn't going to work, and there's a couple reasons. One, that custom field that we're using to categorize the restaurant types, the query cannot account for that custom data field. I can't search those entries. So that was one reason the eURL wasn't going to work. The other one is actually how the data is stored. So as you can see here in the screenshot of the database, I've got multiple records here for Waffle House, and it's for the same location, but they're all different dates. These are all different inspections. So the database is storing everything as a one-to-one relationship. What I need is one record for Waffle House and all of its inspection scores. So I need a one-to-many relationship, and the database as it is now was just not going to allow me to do that. So the way I kind of got around this was to create SQL views. And again, this is like the final product. This is not what I started with. So, but in the end, we ended up using 3 different SQL views. So my first SQL view is going to combine just fields from different tables. And actually this here is a snapshot of that first view. So this is not a raw table from CityWorks. This is stuff I've put together for that, that first view. The second view is where I'm going to make that or transform my one-to-one relationship to a one-to-many relationships. And I did this using case expressions within SQL. One of the interesting things, because I have 2 inspections per year, I've kind of got that, like, okay, so we've got a January to June inspection and a July to December inspection. And I was trying to figure out how to do this dynamically. I still have not figured it out per se. But using the case expressions, I could kind of come up with these categories. So I decided to make a category for each 6-month period from the year 2020 to the year 2040. And I chose that time frame because I figured one of 3 things will happen before the year 2040. One, I'll either figure out how to make this dynamic. 2, that's 20 years from now. We might be using a different software by then. I don't know. I can't read the future. So it might be a moot point. And the third thing is I'll have retired and this is somebody else's problem. So that's how I solved that problem. And now I had that one-to-many relationship. So I have one record for the restaurant and then all of their inspections listed there. And the third view that we made was really, really simple. It was just a spatial view. So I was just linking my CityWorks data to my address point data from my GIS. And luckily for me, my CityWorks database and my SDE share a SQL instance. So this was really simple to do. You can do this if your databases are not on the same instance. There's just a few more involved steps that you would have to take. But in my case, it was very simple. So now that I've got that, I had a spatial view. I could load it into ArcGIS. It was great. I could see everything. All my attributes were there just the way I wanted them. But my next problem was that it was really slow, like really slow. I don't know if anybody's used spatial views before. They're not quick to load. When I first made a feature service of that, the feature service worked, but again, it was really slow. Google will not rank websites that take longer than 5 seconds to load. And many studies have shown that if your website takes just longer than 3 seconds to load, you're already losing the immediate interest of 40% of your visitors. So while I wasn't really worried about losing interest of visitors, where else are people going to go get restaurant scores for Rockwall? I also just didn't want this to be something, oh yeah, look, we're waiting for restaurant scores again for 5 minutes here. So I did want to speed this up. So the solution for that was to put everything into an actual feature class on my SDE. So I just wrote a really quick script that empties out the feature class and then appends the information in from the spatial view. You can see here, this is just a quick screenshot of that Python code. It's 2 lines of code. I've got a lot of other stuff in here to write to logs because logging your scripts are important. But the actual meat and potatoes of the script is these 2 lines. So it's very simple. And then I automated that with Task Scheduler, and we ran that every morning at 5 a.m. So even though it's not completely live data, it was near real time. Every morning at 5 a.m. we'd get the previous stuff from the previous day. So yeah, I've got my my data in spatially available now. So now I built that into a feature service, and now I'm going to build the web map. So as you saw from the food map here, it's really simple. I've got my city outlines and the points of my restaurants. So it's a really basic map. There's not a whole lot in there. However, on my attribute fields, there's almost 100 fields that are coming over from that CityWorks data. So the magic is really happening in the pop-ups. And I used a combination of Arcade and HTML to create those dynamic pop-ups. When earlier version of this, they were not dynamic, and I was having to like manually change over data, like what fields were being shown. And I originally was doing that every 6 months. And I did that once, and I thought, I'm not doing this again. This sucks. I'm going to figure out how to how to automate this. I've automated the other process. Why shouldn't I automate these pop-ups? So that's what I ended up doing. So in order to do this, I had to create a lot of attribute expressions. You can kind of see the list here. But if we roll over here to the actual web map, so you can see I'm only using 3 fields of actual data from the attribute. The rest is being done through, you can add content and add text. So I've added text, and I've chosen to add that as an HTML table. Forgot what the word table was. So we've added that as a table, and that's what that looks like here in the text editor. What that actually looks like with the HTML code is this, and there's a lot. And all of this HTML code is being filled with variables from attribute expressions. And so I have an attribute expression for every single case expression that I had from my second SQL view. Plus 1 more for the current score that's going to populate there. And I know you're probably thinking, Ollie, why the heck did you do this to yourself? And please believe me when I say this was the least painful of all the options. I only had to write these out once, and I never have to touch them again. So it's kind of great. The attribute expressions are pretty simple. This first one here looks the worst. And again, there's a lot of lines of code in there, but it's pretty simple. Again, it's a lot of just copy and paste, and then you're just changing out the variables. So there's nothing really hard in there. The rest of these, again, there's a lot of them, but they're all simple. They're 1 line of code. And even for the location for the inspection document, it's 1 line of code, and it's the same as all the other ones. I'm just changing variables. So, so it looks worse than it is. It's really not that bad. But the result is that I have dynamic pop-ups. I've got a restaurant here that has quite a few inspections versus like Dutch Bros or Qdoba or Einstein Bagels here. These just opened up last year. They only have 1 entry because that's the only inspection they've had to date. They've just opened. So I'm only showing what I have, which is exactly what I wanted. So that's how we built. That's really where a lot of the work is happening, is between those SQL views and then the pop-ups on the map. So now we had to actually make the dashboard itself. So when I was first starting this, I had the option of using a dashboard or experience builder. I actually did build this in both because I wasn't sure which one was going to be the better choice to go with. So on dashboards, it does look a lot better, and it was a little bit easier to configure. Experience Builder, however, it had a lot better table functionality. I wish they had that functionality available in dashboards. Experience Builder also had the option to configure for multiple devices, and originally I was going to go with the Experience Builder because I could only configure for a desktop on dashboards, and when I loaded it on a phone, it looked terrible, and it was really, you could not use it on a phone or a tablet. Most people are using their phones these days. We still do use desktops, but we're using phones a lot, so I needed something that was going to work on a phone. However, halfway through the process of this, Esri did add the option to configure for multiple devices on dashboards. So I ended up going with the dashboard. It does look a lot better, in my experience, or in my opinion, than Experience Builder. Even though I do wish I had the functionality of the Experience Builder. So that's why I chose to go with the dashboard there. And so the other thing I showed you earlier was the reports. So in one of the first versions of this, I didn't have the reports available. So when we first went live, I only had the inspection dates and the scores available. And my health coordinator loved it. She said it was great. And we were actually looking at other cities and how they provide their health inspections, their restaurant inspections to the public. And they all, quite a few of them had the most current health report available as well. And she said, oh, that would be kind of cool just to have the health report there. I was like, okay, I don't think that'll be too hard. We're already, the health inspector's already attaching that report to the task. So it's actually a pretty simple thing. So this part actually only took me 3 days to figure it out. So, but while I was doing it, I realized, oh, it's the same effort to add the report to the most recent as it is to add all the reports. So I just decided to add all the reports. So the only problem I had with this is that CityWorks can access its own files, but other applications cannot due to security issues. So I had to figure out a way to get those health reports available to the public. So I ended up writing a script that goes in, it takes a list of the health inspection reports, and it compares it to a folder on a public facing server that we have. And it just compares the two, and it's only going to copy over those reports that are not there. So the first time I ran this, it copied a lot because it was copying everything. But now that I run it every day, it's doing maybe 15 at most. However many the health inspector can get through. So it's not doing a whole lot. And then once I had that link or the report available, all I had to do was add the HTML link in the pop-up. So cool app, now what, right? So what did this actually do? I've built this app. I've got all my health inspections, I've got the dates and the reports available. What did this actually do? Well, it eliminated the double entry that my health coordinator was doing. It freed up a ton of her time. As I said, she doubles as the code coordinator, so she really doesn't have a whole lot of time to be doing this. Before, she was having to do all the collection and then entering it, and just dealing with all that. Not to mention, like, hey, if you do double entry, that increases the chance for errors to happen. So we eliminated that chance for error on her end. We freed up her time. The only thing she has to do is enter the initial permit and then set that category. And that's all she does. The system does everything else for her. She doesn't have to touch a thing anymore. Additionally, we've made these scores and reports available in near real time, when before it could be weeks or months before they were being updated. So now the public has this information basically at their fingertips. And the thing that we did not realize at all that was going to happen is we reduced the number of hours that she spent doing open records requests to 0. Because before, it would take her hours and hours and hours to collect all this stuff and figure out what's going on. Now she just sends them the link to the app and they have all the information right there. We didn't think of this at all. This was a result of that. So that was amazing. So you might think, okay, cool. We've done this amazing thing. Well, things have progressed through time. And as happens, you have to update software. So late in 2024, we had to do some pretty major upgrades. We upgraded our SQL Server from 2016 to 2022. We upgraded our CityWorks from 15.6.3 to 15.8.8. And we upgraded our Esri software from 10.7 to 10.9. I'd love to go higher, but we have some other older softwares that are not 11 ready yet for Esri. So we're stuck at 10.9. And as you can imagine, everything broke. Everything. All my applications, not just this one. So it took some time to work through everything, dealing with the upgrades. Uh, but eventually I got around to fixing this application again. There's a few key things that I had to fix. One of the things that the SQL 22 has new user permission configurations. So at first I couldn't even connect to the SQL database with the script. So we were trying to figure out why. There's just a new way you have to add permissions to users. So once I figured that out, that problem was solved. However, on the CityWorks side, there was a bunch of changes. There was a lot of table changes, so we had to kind of reconfigure some of our views and how those were being pulled, as well as they changed. A big thing was they changed where the attachments were being saved and how those nested folders were being done. So that actually took a lot longer. Well, before it only took me 3 days to figure out how to do this. This one kind of took me a couple weeks because we had to dig through a lot more. So, but I eventually got that working, and everything was peachy again, and everything was running, and everyone was happy. We had scores, and then the city hired a new securities expert, and he's great. He's doing a fantastic job. He's doing a really important work for the city. But he saw the script was running and things were moving, and he was like, "What is this? What is going on here? How does this run?" And we're like, "Well, it runs off my workstation off my desktop every night." And he was like, "What? No, move that onto the server immediately." So, so we started moving that to the server. The first problem we ran into is that my workstation is still using Python 3.7. The server is using 3.9. So that was the first thing I kind of had to fix. There wasn't too much change in there. It was mostly just connecting the libraries to the right spots. But we got that. My biggest issue, however, was pathing and permissions. Everything off my computer is fine. Everything's right there. Has no issue connecting to these servers I connect to every day. However, I have to use a service account on the server. So I had to update. I couldn't have map drives on the server. I had to use the UNC paths. Not to mention, this script is touching 4 different servers. So I had to figure out how to safely store credentials so the service account could actually access those servers. On top of that, it's not running on my desktop, it's now running on the server. So I had to make sure there was an Esri license available to run the geoprocessing portion of this. So, so that we've got most of this figured out. However, my current problem, and you're all gonna laugh right now, is that its task scheduler is no longer running this. We don't know why. We've got a little bug. So every morning now I have to come in and hit the patch file to run this manually, which is not the whole point. But I'm still working on that. So hopefully soon I'll get that one fixed. But otherwise, everything is running fine. So lessons learned. So it's okay to start small. I really did intend for this to be really small and simple when I started. It did not stay small and simple. Automation doesn't have to be complicated. This kind of runs into each other, but it got complicated. So that does unfortunately tend to happen. But the good thing is we have amazing tools in AI these days. So there were portions of this where I had no idea what I was doing, like writing the case expressions. I had never done that before. So AI made acquiring these skills very, very quick and easy, and I was able to get through things. Another thing, things are going to break. It's just a nature of the game. Things will break, usually at the worst time, but just have a backup plan so that you can keep things moving as best you can. And lastly, have patience. That is so huge when you're doing when you're integrating different platforms like this. Just because you don't have a solution now doesn't mean you're never going to have that solution. I remember thinking like days and days, like I'm never going to fix this problem, never going to fix this problem. And 2 days later, I'll have had it fixed, no issues, and we're moving on to the next thing. So just have patience with yourself. Trust that you will figure it out, even if you don't know now. As for that, thanks everybody for listening. Here's my contact information. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn there, and also check out the dashboard on our health page.
Great. Hey, and don't forget to check out all 19 of our entries on LinkedIn. So, yeah. Hey, we do have a few questions. Kathleen asked, which AI did you use?
Just ChatGPT, and I was even using like the free version of ChatGPT. I
Okay.
definitely hit the max questions a few times, so but I got what I needed, so.
All right. And then Shannon asks, incredible work. Thank you so much for sharing. Did you consider a true one-to-many schema in your database with relationships between restaurants and inspections? I asked that question weird because I'm not a good reader. All right, so let me try that again. Did you consider a true one-to-many schema in your database with a relationship between restaurants and inspections? And if so, what barriers did you what barriers did you find?
I don't think we can actually do that just because I don't have, I'm not the owner of the schema of that database. That's what it is. So I had to use the view to create my own. So that would be, yeah, that one's kind of out of my hands.
Okay, so I had a question about there was a lot of code you had to deal with.
Yeah.
And did you enlist other than AI, does your IT department have anybody that knows code, SQL database stuff, any of that? Did you lean on them for any help or?
Um, so we do have we have someone who built that other application. So we do have
Mhm.
somebody who knows how to code. Unfortunately, the questions I would come to them with, they were also stumped with. So we were both kind of searching the same question. They didn't have immediate answers for me when I got stumped on something.
So you have a small group, and then your IT is probably a pretty small group too, right?
Yes, yes, extremely small.
Um, the I love that the open records requests were down to zero. There's have you ever considered like a return on investment, like how much time was spent on, how much time did that person spend doing the
Yeah, we're doing that
versus.
right now. The she's kind of hating it right now. She's doing a fairly large open records request by hand just so we can see how much time it's taking her to do that. Because we never timed it before. We just know that now she just hands out that link. So that's actually in the process is being done like this week.
Well, Rachel asked a question. What do the restaurant people think? Are they giving feedback on using this?
Yeah, they're loving it. I don't think the owners are loving it, but the public is definitely loving it. I had a lot of feedback from just like general people who use it because they're like, oh, cool. I can actually see if the restaurant I want to go to is somewhere I would like to eat at or not, whether I feel safe depending on their health scores. For the inspectors in general, nothing about their job changed. They're doing the exact same thing they've always done since we implemented CityWorks. The change was mostly on my health coordinator's end, where she no longer had to enter manual records. So, but the public has definitely expressed that this was a really good tool for them to have.
So the restaurant inspectors, are they collecting, or are they using CityWorks and some kind of like collector app out in the field to capture all this info, or are they still filling out paper to then enter
I
in there?
think the state requirements, they have to fill out that report. Um, but she is filling in CityWorks in the field on their devices that they have. So they just attach it right then and there.
I just want to point out a comment that just did in the chat, just following up when you said, and then we hired a security manager, and then you know
Yeah.
enter
Yeah.
enter problem here.
Yes. Yeah. He's been a great addition to the IT team. He's very much needed. So, but we definitely did not have this position last year.
So the report to the state, is that coming out of CityWorks now? Or does it come out of the dashboard that you wrote?
No,
How does your city communicate this info to the state?
I'm not actually sure.
Okay. All right.
I don't want to give a nice smart answer when I don't know. I think the inspectors have to send that directly to the state, but don't quote me on that.
Now, was there a faster turnaround with inspection notes once the to improvements to the restaurants? Like if the grades, if I had a C, did you suddenly get an A because people were looking? Did they
Um,
found that the restaurants were better at?
we haven't looked at that yet, but I'll definitely ask the health coordinator to keep an eye on that, and we can actually check in the data, see, okay, those that were getting worse scores, are they now getting better scores? But it's also it would be hard to correlate, okay, is that just because of the app or is that because of other reasons?
So you had said something that hit home to me, and probably most of us here on this call is we upgraded and everything crashed, everything broke. What my guess is, so this your dashboard was in production,
Mhm.
and was it out of production for a while you were figuring it out, or did you kind of have to keep two systems going to kind of keep it up?
It stayed up. It just didn't get updated.
Okay, okay.
So yeah, the dashboard itself was working. It just didn't have the most recent data on it.
Have you learned for something like this that you get a lot more feedback from the public that sort of rely on these things that you're providing to them now? You're like, oh, this is free. This is a convenience to the citizen. Suddenly, now you're busy because the citizen needs something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely yeah, we definitely get calls like when it wasn't being updated because we were still trying to fix everything after the upgrades. We definitely got calls about, hey, these inspection scores are not there. We know that they got inspected. Why aren't these available? So it's definitely now that it's out there in the world, the world has noticed for sure.
So here's some more work for you. One of our audience, Shannon again. Out of morbid curiosity, can I filter the dashboard by score? This is what we're talking
No,
about.
not yet. So that's something that you could have done in Experience Builder. This is one of the functionalities that I liked from that table. The dashboard is really just a dashboard. You can't really interact with it too much. Um, I do want to go back and look at Experience Builder and see if they've made. I really, really didn't like Experience Builder, how those tables looked. You cannot change the font. You couldn't change. There's a lot you just couldn't change on it. Um, but I would love to one day go back and just see because I know Esri's always upgrading these systems. So I'd like to go back and when I have time one day, see what they've done and maybe I might switch it over to the Experience Builder version one day.
And may I ask how many people are on your team?
On our GIS team,
Yes.
we have 3.5.
Okay. And how many worked on this project?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you reach out to other cities or other people doing something similar? Did you look at other dashboards and thought,
Yes.
that's what I
Yes.
want to do?
I definitely looked around. Um, Jordan, when he was
Yep.
at City of McKinney, he built a food dashboard or food map for them. So I looked at his a lot. Um, somebody else, I can't remember which city had something else similar. So I definitely took inspiration from those, but our dashboard definitely has different functionality than those ones do.
That's great. And did you feel like you made headway with your city council and city manager that GI that you can do magic?
Yeah, doing this actually got so the City of Rockwall hands out 2 awards every year. They have the Award and the Director's Choice Award, and I was the recipient of the Director's Choice Award for last year because of this project.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So great. All right. All right, everybody. Take a quick look, scan that code. I'm about to take over with some slides here, so stand by. So let's talk about. Oh, I knew I was going to do that wrong. All right. So, have you heard? You may have originally thought this was going to be a EURISA meeting. It turned out to be a GPN, a Geospatial Professional Network meeting. So we have rebranded, and so you may know that already. But um, this is our new name, our new brand, our new colors. If you read down at the bottom, that's our elevator pitch or our value proposition. So this is the direction that we're taking. We feel that the profession or the professional is the core of our group, and we're trying, we're trying to reflect that now. So just something to share with others. Come on. Upcoming events next month, City of Frisco and their Safer program, the Situation Awareness for Emergency Response, will be at the end of March. And in April, toward the end of April, King County will be talking about their excellence in GIS. Both of those were ESIG award winners as well. If you need some stuff to do, if you're making vacation plans, don't forget to head out to the GIS Valuation Technology Valtech conference in Columbus, Ohio, here in a couple of weeks, a week. CalGIS, if you're in the neighborhood, they have a annual conference, and theirs is in mid-April. And if you're looking to enhance your leadership skills, and this is what I think GPN excels at, is their GIS Leadership Academy. And the next one's going to be in June in Chicago. And if you missed the early chit chat, summertime in Chicago is fantastic. We have the Advanced Leadership Academy now. We've taught one last year, and this will be the second one in November in New Orleans. And then we have another GIS Academy uh, event in Savannah. So in order to to go to the advanced, the prerequisite is you have to go through the GIS Leadership Academy before you can go to the advanced. And then finally, I hope to see all of you in Denver to the GIS Pro, my favorite conference, hopefully yours too. And it'll be in October. It's always in October in Denver, and it should be fantastic. So I'd like to thank all of you for attending. Ollie, do you have any parting words or any? Does anybody have any last question that I missed?
I don't know if there's any other questions, but just yeah, don't be afraid to try something, even if you're not sure 100% how to do it right out the gate. You will come to you will figure it out. It's 100% possible. If I figured it out, anybody can figure it out.
And so what I learned from Trisha Brush during the webinar last week, let's show Ollie some love with the reactions. And you can hit that multiple times, I've known. So let's just, fantastic. Ollie, we really appreciate you sharing not only your accolades, everything that works, but I think what we really love is the stuff that doesn't work, right? The stuff that we all have to struggle with. Thank you for being honest and sharing all of that with us. Danielle, is there anything else that we need to share?
Nope.
Then I think
Sorry, I
that
could
will.
not find the unmute button. We're good.
Well, again, thank you all very much, and you have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you next month at the next ESIG webinar. Take care.